How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all doing good. In this video, I'm going to be creating a realistic drawing from reference and discussing my typical approach. So hopefully if you are interested in doing something like this yourself, then you'll find this useful. Now, I haven't made much content on the subject of realistic drawing for a while because I've been covering other subjects, but I did say in my 2021 review video that I wanted to find the time to cover more of it on the channel alongside everything else. So this is what this is. I'm creating a realistic drawing and I'm going to discuss my process. Now, I have to say that I accidentally deleted the first hour or so of footage, which is annoying because you're not going to see me draw this eye here, but don't worry, I will do another video like this where I draw something similar, and there's plenty of footage of me drawing like this on the channel anyways. But yeah, I tried recovering the footage and everything, but I wasn't able to, so yeah, my mistake. Anyways, I'll just discuss my general approach to creating a drawing like this, and you'll still hopefully find this useful. In my experience, you'd probably learn more from just observing and watching the footage on screen. Right now it's in a time lapse, but every so often I'll place this in real time and you can see how long this takes. I do post a lot of real-time drawing footage along with realistic drawing tutorials on Patreon as well. Anyways, when it came to outlining this drawing first, I decided to use the grid method, hence these grid lines that you can see on the page. And I've made videos in the past covering how to do this, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I have my reference image up on a computer screen in front of me on which I had drawn this same grid, making sure my reference image is at the same scale, being A5. The same as the paper that I'm drawing on here, and then I replicate that grid onto my paper, lightly drawing the grid lines so that I can erase them later, or at least, draw over them and cover them up. Once I have that same grid drawn out on both, I can observe the reference image and start to outline the drawing, looking at where the parts of the image, like this big eyeball for example, crosses the grid lines. And the grid method is popular because it helps to judge the proportions more accurately, seeing as the grid lines act as a reference. You can easily guess how far something is from a specific grid line, and so it becomes less of a challenge when trying to work out where to outline something. So that was how I created this preliminary outline that you can see here, and then I was able to get right into rendering these realistic details. So to start doing this, I suppose one question might be, where do I start, right? Now, I typically start by drawing the main section or focus of the image first, like the eyeball in this drawing for instance. Everything else around it is less of a priority when it comes to getting it right, and by getting it right, I mean making sure that the proportions are correct, and that the textures and details are as good as you can make them, because when someone looks at your drawing, just like when they look at the reference image, they're going to look at this part first. I find that with portraits, people tend to look at the eyes first, and so I start a portrait by drawing in the eyes, which tends to be the most challenging part of the drawing, but in a way, it is good to start at the hardest part of the drawing in case it goes incredibly wrong, because you can just start again. If you had spent hours drawing everything else and then went on to draw the harder parts only to then get it wrong, it's frustrating to have to erase it and rework it. There'd also be a lot of pressure to get that right, and that's something that you want to avoid when drawing. If you start at what you think is the hardest part of the drawing, then once you get that right, the rest is steady sailing, I suppose. And from then on, you can just work forwards with confidence because you know that you've got that part done. So yeah, the short answer is start at the hardest part of the drawing, which is generally the main point of focus, and that's important to get right. So as you can see on screen, I had started drawing this eye directly in the center of the image, and I just started working from there using the grid and my preliminary outline to guide me as I go. Now, I've always said that one thing that's essential when drawing like this isn't necessary skill or anything along them lines, it's patience. patience is what will allow you to sit down and work on a drawing like this over time, bit by bit, or line by line, should I say. Because here you can see how I'm essentially making a collection of marks in an effort to draw what I observe in the reference image. And these individual marks come together to create a final image. And to be honest, I found that my approach, or this approach, results in a drawing that looks somewhat stylistic. Of course, there's a limit to how stylistic you can be when creating a realistic drawing, but the collection of pencil marks that make up the image can still be seen, and it gives a result that, in a way, is similar to what you might achieve when stippling. And so perhaps this isn't the most efficient way to go about creating a drawing like this, but it's the approach that works best for me. And I also enjoy doing this. I find it quite meditative to just sit and draw something like this, and I've emphasized in the past that it's the process that I appreciate the most, not so much the final image. Of course, it is nice to see the image at the end, but the process of drawing like this is where I find the most enjoyment. The finished drawing doesn't really do much for me. I've done many videos in the past discussing my personal relationship with realistic drawing and how it became quite a sterile way of working for me, and so I had to take a break from it and start drawing in different ways. And this is evident on the channel. If you take a look at the content that I make, you'll see that I eventually started to focus on subjects such as perspective drawing or more recently anatomy. And so it's quite nice now for me to be making this video after such a long break, and obviously drawing like this again. And I'm also aware that there's a lot of you out there who really enjoy seeing this. Now, in terms of what I actually use to draw this, I list all of my equipment in the description, but my go-to tools seem to be my mechanical pencil, specifically the Uniball Karutoga, and also a Tombow Mono Zero eraser. And these are the only two items that I need to draw. However, towards the end of the drawing, I'll often use a softer 6B pencil to achieve some darker tones and add some contrast to the image. Here I'm drawing on some Bristol board, which is usually what I use when creating a drawing like this. Now, the eraser is something that I have to talk about because it's not only good for removing mistakes, but it's also great to use when making highlights, because I'm able to carefully pick up some of the pencil marks that I make and lighten the drawing accurately. My mechanical pencil also allows me to be very precise because I'm using some 0.5 2B lead, and so I guess all of what I use is in an effort to be as precise as possible when drawing. Now, if I take this out of time-lapse again, it gives you an idea of how long it takes to draw this, and as I said, I have my reference image on screen that I'm constantly looking at before I make each of these marks with my pencil. I'll be posting more of this real-time drawing footage from this drawing on the Patreon page, but for these YouTube videos, it's impractical to not show a process like this in a time-lapse. But here you can see on screen how I've decided to start adding some darker tones to this drawing using a softer 6B pencil, and I have to make sure to sharpen this often, seeing as it blunts easily, and if you are drawing very fine details like this, then you'll have a hard time using a pencil that isn't sharp. That's the benefit of using a mechanical pencil, the fact that you don't have to constantly sharpen it. Anyways, I hope that this video has given you an insight into my approach when drawing something like this. As I said earlier, I do intend on creating some more content on the subject of realistic drawing, so if you are interested in that, then expect some more over time. If you enjoyed this audio log, then do consider leaving a like, and with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the content I create, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You will gain access to exclusive tutorials, study documents, process papers, real-time drawing footage and more. Plus, you will also be supporting me in a more personal way. Other than that, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.